everyone. Welcome back to Ion Radio, and this is the Backseat Admiral, and I'm John. So like normal, this is a mic check, so if you guys can hear me, let me know how the sound sounds, and if it's loud enough or I need to try to adjust. Welcome. Today is April 25th, 2022, and we have a lot of ground to cover today. I'm going to finish off the fleets for round one of the 2022 This is Madness tournament. So we have 4 fleets to talk about there. And then I'm also going to talk about our Rapid Reinforcements Game 1 that Ken and I played and released last week. So we have lots and lots to talk about. It looks like sound is good. And this is fine for sound volume because sometimes people say that I'm too quiet. I just want to make sure that I'm loud enough. While you guys are deciding that, I'm going to look through the chat. So welcome, Kentucky Fried Clash. This is your first live stream. Welcome aboard. You've been listening to us about a year. I think we've actually now coming up on about a year that I've been doing Backseat, which is kind of crazy. I was just looking at the date, like April 25th. The whole month of April's gone by like that. Time just flies. Ken's in chat today, so if you guys have any questions for him, he's available throughout. Krogo Magnum's here. Ken's here. Be Danger's here. Sounds good. Cool. I am glad everyone can hear me. Wookie Sin is here as well. Welcome to your first time as well. Cool. We got a lot of first time people in the stream today. Jordan Hopkins, welcome aboard. The answer to your question is yes, he does. Good. Volume's good. Okay, so let's kick it over. We'll check out where we've been and what we're talking about today, and then dive right into the fleets. Like always, if you guys have any questions or ideas or things you just want to talk about, drop it in chat, and I bounce back in between talking about fleets and looking at chat. So here we are. We are in the bottom right corner of this bracket, round 7 and 8 today. The first matchup we're going to talk about is the Martuk versus Agate matches, which is Seed 3 versus Seed 14. Seed 3, the Martuk list, which is what we're going to go over right now, was brought to you by the IrishMadCat, who's one of our collaborator channels, and he does really good fleet builds and things like that. And pretty active in the European scene. He's from Ireland. Big surprise. It's his name. And he brought us Martuk. Last year, he was the winner. So we were very interested to see if he could continue that streak, and he brought us the Martuk list. So let me jump into that and pull that up real fast. Here we go. So his Martuk list obviously is CIS because it's Martuk. It doesn't have that much. It's kind of streamlined. So he has 3 ships, no fighters. So his first ship is his flagship. It's a Munificent class Star Frigate, which is the variant that you don't normally see. Most of the time you see the Comms Frigate because it's cheaper, and it has the, I always butcher these slots. Give me 1 second. It has the slot, it's the, where is it? Offensive retrofit slot, which works kind of better for the CIS because you can put like reserved hangar bays or hangar decks or whatever it's called on it. That's usually how you see it because most of the time you just slap Blink Turbo Laser Towers on it and you're good to go, so cheaper is better. But I think I know why he did this. It has medical team, and that's just so you can ditch a bad card. Also has Tide of Progress, so the first crit, if it's crew or ship, which is all of them, you can discard, which is great because then this ship is pretty much crit resistance for at least 1 crit. It is thermal shield, so if you're fighting something like a Venator or something with a large dice pool, you can just split it in half from the beginning, which is great damage mitigation for it. It has point defense ion cannon, so if you get in close or if you're using fighters, good luck, because it's going to have you re-roll all those attack. Like I said, it has the stapled on linked turbo laser towers, which is great because every single arc and flak for the ship has red dice, so you get to re-roll them. Where this ship, I think, excels, though, in this, because he has no fighters, is the fact that it has black and red flak. So when fighters come in close to you, they have to re-roll their attacks because of point defense ion cannons, and then you can salvo them. That's actually what I did in this game, is I maintained my salvo mainly to attack squadrons, and it's a black and a red, and you can re-roll the red, so theoretically that's 2 damage pretty reliably. And then when you go to attack fighters, it's again a black and a red that you can re-roll the red, and then you can dump whatever 2 color dice you need into it with Link Turbo Laser Tower. So between flacking and Link Turbo Laser Towering 1 fighter, that's theoretically you're salvoing flacking with the Link Turbo Laser Towers. That's, what is it? That's 6 dice. So theoretically you should be able to kill out most things within 1 or 2 turns. So that's pretty powerful. So that's the flagship. It's pretty good. Next ship. It is a very, very bare bones Recusant Light Destroyer with Patriot's Fist. That's it. It's still really good because it's rolling a lot of dice. Personally, I would like rerolls on it because it's mainly red dice, and red dice historically are terrible for me. But he just doesn't have the points for it. Putting a Link Turbo Laser Tower on this would have been very, very nice. Last ship. It's pretty much the same thing as the first Munificent, except it's very bare bones. It removes the crit abilities and the commanders, because you really want to keep the commander alive, obviously, because it's Martuk. But it's the same basic idea of thermal shields. You can have a really, really large pool, and then point defense says you can reroll at close range, and Link says I'm going to reroll all my red dice because I got red dice everywhere. That's it for the fleet. But it's deceivingly powerful. You're like, it's medium-based ships, blah, blah, blah. They don't really move fast. That's fine. Like, you're just throwing red dice. You don't really need to move fast. You just sit there and let the enemy fly into you. His objectives for this fleet are very good as well. Let me pull that up. It is surprise attack, so you can sit there and get raided, and then he just sits there and waits for you to fly into him with red dice. Cool. Asteroid Tactics, which is good if the other player has fighters and chooses this, because then you can pin them down and flak them to death. Volatile Deposits means you could sit there, collect points, and then red crit at long range. Also really good. This is like very, very solid all-around list. I really liked flying it. We didn't really have a lot of fighter-heavy fleets in Madness this year. And when you look at this, you're like, this fleet's really weak against fighters. And then you actually dive into specifically it being a star frigate and having Link Turbo Laser Towers and having point defense ion cannons, and you realize, oh no, if you fly into these 2 that are flying next to each other, that's a lot of firepower. Like, you should be able to kill out at least a squadron a turn. Like, in this game, the other player had YT-2400s, which are 6 hull rogues, and as soon as they fly into you, you just overlapping fire and you kill 1 per turn. It's really good. Really, really good. So, and then you have Patriot's Fist just flying around doing Patriot's Fist things. So I think this fleet works remarkably well. So I was really excited to play it and see how it did. That's really it for that fleet. Not a ton to talk about. So I'm going to jump over now to the Agate fleet. Let me find it. So Agate came in at 14 and was brought to us by Analog Line. And it is right here. This is what I was saying. It has a ton of YT-2400s and an MC-75 tank ship. So Agate is sitting on this armored cruiser. It has Whale Explosives, so you can get one of your tokens back. And it has local fire control, so you're switching out one of those contains for a salvo. It has flat guns, so you can fire its dice at longer range. Reactive gunnery, so even if you block that salvo, you can still spend the other contain as long as it's green to still do the salvo. Then it has DBY 827 heavy turbo lasers, which sets a dice during a salvo to a crit. And you have a black dice in that crit, so that's automatically 2 damage. So flat guns make the rear arc, the flak there. Blue dice at long, black at mediums, which is pretty good. And then Agate, I would say I would take a salvo with her because she's a salvo build, depending on the list. Maybe a brace, depending on if it's like a really tanky ship. But like Walix gets you a token back, and her ability, if it ever gets accuracy, just allows you to spend it out. So cool. It will always survive. And then besides that, it's just a flak boat or salvo boat, and you just want to sit there and you want them to shoot you so you can shoot them back, and then on your turn shoot them to deplete defense tokens. Next ship is just your standard CR90 Corvette A. It's got turbo reroute circuits and Jaina's Light, the standard cards for it. Just good damage output. Then it has a transport with CommsNet, and that just hangs out and it passes tokens to the MC75 so it stays alive better or can maneuver. Then it has 5 YT2400s, so they can just go off on their own because they're rogue and they can just play their own game. This is a pretty good list together. This is my problem with salvo Agate fleets, though. Why attack it? It's a point fortress, but if you just ignore it, it's all of its upgrades then don't matter because every single upgrade on this card, except for Walix, is a salvo. So you have in this fleet 14 points of salvoing, and if you don't attack it, it never gets to salvo, so it doesn't get to use any of those cards. All you have to do is kill that, which is a Corvette, which is doable easily, a transport, which is doable, and that gets you right there like 70 points out of like the 300, and then you have all these fighters sitting here. That's roughly 100 points, so you have like 200-ish points of not Agate's flagship that's going to salvo you. So most of the time you're going to be targeting all of that and trying to kill it, which is what I ended up trying to do in this game. So I feel like that's that's the weakness to this type of fleet, is just don't fight the main ship. And this made this particular matchup really, really hard for this fleet, because I think this fleet would probably, against most other fleets that are in the tournament, sometimes you just get poor seeding, and I think this was just a poor seeding for this fleet against the specifically Martuk fleet, because Martuk's really, really good with a Patriot's Fist at killing CR90s and killing transports, because CR90s, like at long range with Martuk, you're starting with Patriot's Fist of four red dice, adding in another red dice, and then adding in 2 blue, so you're probably getting accuracy. So it's either you're not redirecting or you're completely not evading, and that damage is just going straight to the hull. So like, if you could get 8 damage in and 2 accuracies and block the evade, the ship's dead. Or just 2 turns of shooting it, it's gone. Same with the transport. As soon as you get up into like that blue range, like medium range to it with the Patriot's Fist, this thing dies. It doesn't have very much hull. It has 1 shield. It has no redirect. Its evade could reroll dice, but a lot of times that's not going to matter. You just block the scatter and it explodes. So like Patriot Fist is like a hard counter to the entire fleet of this besides the MC75. And then as we discovered, the Munificents are super good at flacking down things without defense tokens, which this whole fleet has no defense tokens for its fighters. So couple that with the objective that was chosen, which was Asteroid Tactics with the extra costs that got to attack them for free. That just really neutered the power of this fleet. I don't think whatever objective it chose, the YT-400s would have really done that much, because if you chose surprise attack, the fleet just sits back, and then this fleet has to choose to engage because it's first player and has to. Or the other one, which was volatile deposits, which you don't really want to just sit in the back corner because it's all red dice. So it's kind of like a hard place, because flacking is a real thing. And I think the flacking between the Munificents and LTTs would take out all the YT-2400s. Like, I'm a big fan of YT-2400s. Are probably too cheap, but against dedicated flak, they don't stand much of a chance. Let's check out the objectives, because if this fleet was first player, it might have changed things. The objectives for this fleet are most wanted, so clearly you just drop that right onto the transport, and then you have to move into range to shoot it. Doesn't help the fighters at all, but you can probably kill the other most wanted ship. Contested outpost, so you just sit your Agate MC-75 right on the outpost to collect points. And Doom Station, which is basically the same thing except as a rift that it's moving toward. If I had to choose between these, I would probably choose Contested Outpost because at least I would know where all the other ships were. And then I would have moved Martuk across and just had been forced then to gun down the flagship. And that would have been a bloodbath on both sides, I think. So that would have been a tough matchup for playing that objective. So in this matchup, Martuk won, mainly because flacking and just ignoring Agate completely is what decided that game. So that's really it that I have for that fleet discussion. So if you guys have any comments or thoughts about it, put it in the comments, and I'll start getting ready for the next fleet. Let me get this all set. Big thanks to both of our players for submitting lists. Ken and I both really enjoy Madness. There we go. Okay, looks like we got lots of chat going on. Let me go back and look at this. Usually don't have to scroll up. I'm glad so many people are here today. So if I haven't said hello to you yet, welcome in the chat. First backseat was 8-2. Wow. Yeah, that's coming up. We're only like, what, 4 months away from the anniversary of that? People always rooting for Ken. And his red dice. Yeah, Ken's red dice are crazy. Yeah, Ken and I, so it's kind of funny. Whenever Ken and I come up with an idea, like we're both kind of usually thinking the same general thing because we're talking about how we came up with the madness. I actually stole it from Warhammer. Warhammer was doing a cross, channel thing, and they were doing like a big bracket tournament. I'm like, we could do that, but at the time, I think we were really the only channel that was actively producing any Armada content like that. And when we were trying to reach out to other people, no one really was responding to us because we weren't anything yet. So I'm like, let's just use users submitted lists, and we really liked it, and that's how we decided to stick with it. Yeah, all the lists, Jordan, that were submitted by first Patreon and then Discord and YouTube. So every list in this is not our own, and we don't change anything in it. So sometimes we get handed a list and we're like, this isn't like our normal list. So we're actually going to talk about that in a second. One of the lists, we all have different play styles, and you're forced to play styles you're not necessarily a fan of. Hey, Skull, how's it going? Madness is the best month / 3 months. It just keeps going. We spaced it out a lot this year. Yeah, welcome, Jordan, to just joining our Discord. We have a lot of conversation going on there all the time. Okay, so let's go now into... Everyone's just chit-chatting, not necessarily asking questions. So we're down here, round 8, last game or match of the first round of the tournament. And we have Seed 11 Ramadi, who is brought to us by Matthew. And we have Screed, who's brought to us by Rovechkin. So I was playing Ramadi, and he is... I think I already opened that. Hold on. He's an all Architent list. And like I was just saying, like sometimes you get handed a list that you don't necessarily want to play because you're not good with it. Like Architents, I probably would say are my worst ship in the game. Most other ships I can do just fine. And like I'm good with like even actually no, the worst ship is the Raider. I'm terrible with the Raider. Even when I'm lifeboating the Raider, I get him die. So this is my second worst ship. Most other ships I'm pretty good with, but Architens I'm really bad with. And it's really frustrating because when people use Architens against me, they're really, really good. And then I use them and I'm like, well, their damage output's kind of poor. And they explode when you sneeze on them. But then when I'm trying to kill them, it's like 60 damage coming in, and then they escape on 1 health. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong with them. So this game actually felt really good. I felt like I could use them properly. I skimmed away with like 1 health a couple times, and I was actually getting some damage output with them. So I was pretty happy with myself with this. So let's take a look at the list. So it's Architen's Command Cruiser. It's got General Romedy, who adds dice if you're obstructed. It has Darth Vader, so you can choke out all of your officers and get some rerolls, which I appreciate because it's all red dice and I need rerolls. It has Auxiliary Shield Team to make it a little bit more tanky. Electronic countermeasures, so you can always use your defense tokens. And linked turbo laser towers, so I can reroll. Man, 2 built-in rerolls for these ships. That's great. I like that. And extra health and extra dice. It's great. Then you have on top of that 3 identical Architen light cruisers with skilled first officer, so I can chuck them out the airlock with Vader to get some reroll. Reactive gunnery, so I can use that contain before I start taking crits to do a salvo. And even if it's just 1 red dice, that's still a red dice with a reroll with linked turbo laser towers. This list is kind of nice. Lots of rerolls, lots of dice. Not much to talk about with build wise because it just is what it is. Like normally running Architen's light, like as in not just the light cruiser, but like light in upgrades is the way I would do it. And when you have a swarm of them like this and you can fly them in a tight formation, like if they obstruct each other, who cares? You get extra dice because of Rami. So objective wise, you want something that you can plop objectives in the way of your opponent to obstruct it. And if they don't do that, then you just let your ships obstruct themselves. Yeah, cool. So let's check out the objectives that this fleet came with. It came with Ion Storm, Asteroid Tactics, and Solar Corona. So all of those kind of give you an advantage for putting out obstacles so that they're obstructed and can obstruct shots. So let's start with Ion Storm. You place all the obstacles, and then you also get a crit effect that if they're not near it and they have an objective token, you can score crits off of them to score points, which is great because you're going to just sit behind all those obstacles you put out and throw red dice and just keep hunting for crits to score things. Cool. That's actually what I ended up doing in the game. Asteroid Tactics, you put out all the obstacles, and then you put out Extragoths, so then you can obstruct all of your shots. Great. Then you just trigger him more. In Solar Corona, you set up normal, and then you put out your fleet second, so then, you can try to obstruct your shots, and then basically when they're attacking you, you make it so then you're like broadsiding them on the Solar Corona, so then their accuracies don't hit you, so then you survive better. All these objectives work really, really well with this fleet all the way across the board. It gives you really, really hard decision. Ken ended up choosing Ion Storm because he didn't want to give up activation or deployment, completely with Solar Corona. And Asteroid Tactics, he knew that I could just always obstruct my shots with the Exargoth, so he didn't want to do that. So he chose Ion Storm. And it worked out for me pretty well. I set up in a line and then made it so then my Architens all turned at the same time. So then they had like their own little asteroid that was sitting in front of them to obstruct their shots. And then my idea was to move around the board and just have it there to obstruct shots as I went. And I kind of did that decently well. We'll see the other fleet in a second. I wasn't actually expecting to be able to win this match, mainly because my history with Architens is pretty poor. And I also am terrible with MSU in general, and specifically Imperial MSU, because I'm really bad with Architens. So I like this list because it actually made me feel good about flying them. So let's check out the other list now. And it is a Screed list brought to us by Rovechkin. Seed coming in 6th. And then I'll show you why I was actually afraid of this list in particular. And it's got fighters, it's got an ISD-2, and it has a gladiator. ISD-2s can pop Architens at medium range like that. I only have 4 of them, only 3 that, and then like the flagship. Rolling in 8 dice against me will kill me. Like, even if you redirect, like if you're at blue range, like you have no way to really reduce the damage. Maybe rolling a double red into maybe a single, but like they should be doing like 8 damage against you. So 8 damage redirected between the shield locations. So that's 2 to the front, take 2 to the side. That's 4, and then you take 4 damage. And if you draw structural, you're dead. 1 shot. And if you're not, then they ram you and you're dead. Like, you should be able to pop 1, maybe 2 Architens a turn. Or you just set up that you weaken them, and then the next turn you move in, and then you kill them. Like, the ISD-2 can just plow right through my entire fleet in like 2 turns. So I was like, I have to be really, really careful how I fly against this. So this fleet is an Imperial 2 class Star Destroyer. It has Admiral Screed, Director Krennic, Gunnery Teams, Point Defense Ion Cannon, so if I get close, he can make me reroll, so that gives him a step up. Link Turbo Laser Tower. So this has a lot of dice control, like a lot of dice control. And Gunnery Teams with Krennic and the Imperial 2's Arc and Link Turbo Laser Towers means that you, and Screed, like you should have max damage on every single attack that you get off with this ship, which is really good and really bad if you're running only Architens. So that is actually a really good lineup for me. Gladiator 1, it has the Emperor, it has Ordnance Experts, it has Auxiliary Shield Teams, Assault Proton Torpedoes, and Demolisher. It's a pretty solid build. Personally, I think Kenan talked about this in the after action report and things like that, but the Emperor probably would have been better off on the Star Destroyer instead of Director Krennic, because this is where all the points are, and the Gladiator is not fun to shoot at because of its size and having an evade and having the Emperor. It also, that's actually pretty good because you don't want them really shooting at it, but it would make the shooting at the Star Destroyer even more painful, which I think might have been better. And then this just far flanker. But the rest of it, like engineering, auxiliary shield techs, demo, ordnance, and assault, that's all really good. Then you have Hell Runner, and you have 4 TIE fighters in case someone brings fighters. Like this allows you to punch above your point cost, and the ISD can activate 4 of them. So basically, the first time you move in Hell Runner and 3 TIE fighters, and then one of them's probably going to die. And then the next time you activate Hell Runner and the rest of her TIE fighters until they're all done. So this can eat most squadron balls in this 300 point range probably pretty decently. I didn't have any fighters because I'm just Architen, so the fighters could just run rampant against me, but rolling blue dice non-Sloan isn't very good. So that's the fleet. And it made me really, really scared because that ISD with all the rerolls and with Screed, and even like the demo with Screed, like that's like you roll a double, then you set one to a double, and you automatically are getting off your assault proton torpedoes. Like that's really good. And then it's really terrible against Architens who have like no hull and no way to really reduce damage. So I'm like, I'm gonna die at least one of these ships a turn. So I have to basically be running the entire game. And if I'm running on weak hull, then the fighters are going to fly over and kill me. Kind of puts me in a really tough spot. And I totally closed the file that I needed. Give me a second. Okay, so the objectives for this fleet, though. targeting beacons, which gives you even more rerolls. So that's like stacked rerolls on rerolls. I know I always talk about like I need rerolls, and Rovechkin, this fleet was really made for me and my ability to reroll everything. Jamming barrier, I don't know how much I like that one because you kind of want to be engaging and flying across, but I guess it would protect you against like my fleet, and you would be able to like set up where you actually want to engage. And then dangerous territories, you only have 2 ships, so the likelihood that you're going to be landing on any of the obstacles is lower than, let's say, running an MSU fleet. So if you gave me the option running the Rami fleet against this, I would 100% choose dangerous territories, because then the obstacles are moving around, so then I can obstruct my shots. So giving me that is almost like giving me an advantage. I wouldn't even look at jamming barrier, and I wouldn't even look at targeting beacons, just because I would just be moving the obstacles to obstruct my shots. But then the other way, like Asteroid Tactics, Solar Corona, and Ion Storm are all terrible objectives for this fleet to face against. And in the game, what I ended up doing is, because the special objective critical is like gain a token, here's some free points, discard a command token. If you don't have any command tokens, lose shields. Well, that really, really hurts the ISD, because ISDs want to stack tokens. They want nav tokens to be able to maneuver. They want con fire tokens to use gunnery teams, because this entire Star Destroyer is built around the concept of gunnery teams. But you need to move across the board. Like, so I was able to eliminate Ken's ability to really gunnery teams me, because he was going to use a token to do that right off the bat, and then he's stuck at speed, so he was like just right into my death trap of Architens that were just chip firing away, gaining tokens every single time. So like after every single time they attacked, I had enough tokens to pay for one of my ships. So that's kind of brutal. But hey man, you could just do so much damage with this. I think Screed wants a Kuat more than an ISD2, but then you don't have the fighter power to push your fighters in case you run against fighters. And that's really one of the reasons why we both like 300 point madness, is because you can't really optimize it well. Like, all the fleets really need 100 more points. Or we could drop it to 200 points, and then you can just pretend your fleet doesn't really work anyway. But like that 300 point is like this sweet spot of, you can get ideas out there, but you can't optimize them, which makes actually for a fun playing experience, because you have fleets that can do things okay, but you don't necessarily have fleets doing things great. And it's just a decent power curve between everything. So that's what makes it a lot of fun for us. So let's now look at where we are in the bracket. And that popped up on the wrong spot. So round 1 is now done, and it looks like this. And the next matchup, so this is the quarterfinals, are going to be TF versus Osel, Sato versus Dodana, Leia versus Plo Koon, and Martuk versus Rami. All these matchups are going to be very interesting, because they survived 1 round already. Can they survive 2 rounds is the question. We have some surprising fleets, I think, so far. I think one of the biggest surprises in this tournament so far is Dodana being on top of Luminara. In our Discord, we had put up brackets and people filled it out, and a lot of people had Luminara going all the way and winning the tournament. So that was a real bracket buster right there. I don't know if anyone has an intact bracket right now. I think everyone has lost, mainly because of this matchup right here. Yeah, pretty much this matchup right here. This lower left corner of the bracket is what shook up most people's brackets. And people still have certain commanders going to be winning it all, but as a whole, like, no one's going to be able to get a perfect bracket right now. So that's where we're at. So this week we're going to be starting into the quarterfinals, and we'll be starting up here with the TF versus Osel fleet. So excited for you guys to watch that. So I'm going to flip over to the chat and catch up on chat for a little bit. And then we're going to talk about the beginning of Ken and I playing our first game of rapid reinforcements that we released a surprise video this last Tuesday of it. If you haven't, you should go check it out just because we're flying all the new stuff and it's a lot of fun. And we will check out chat right now. Wow, hey James, thank you very much for the $5 donation. He super chatted us, so greatly appreciated. And he says, drinks for the first film session. We usually film in the very morning, so those drinks will probably be coffee for Ken and Coke for me because I don't drink coffee. So we greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much. Skull really likes the Architect list. I was surprised by it. Mainly, like I was saying, like I'm terrible with Architects. Officer Vader is one of the best 1-point upgrades. Yeah, he could be costing more. I know he gets rid of upgrades, but like when you need a reroll, you need a reroll. That's going to determine the game. Oh, Ken literally says the exact same thing that I said, which is kind of funny because we kind of think the same way. Architens, Jordan, are really, really hard to find in the wild, mainly because they're very, very popular ships. So if you can find them, buy them. eBay, you can buy them for like an exorbitant amount of money, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. Just check local stores, check Amazon, things like that to find them. Yeah, that's basically what Krogo Magnum said. He bought 4 from Amazon. I think mine, because I only had a couple. I think I only had 2, and like obviously, like there was 4 right there. Also, fun fact: every single Madness fleet that you saw in the whole tournament, I had out at one time, and the only thing I was missing to have all the fleets out was 1 Pelta of the Gar variety, which since I bought, and then 1 Architen, which Ken brought over. I'll need to buy some more Architens, and I had all 16 of the fleets pulled out and in shelves lined up ready to play all at the same time. Wookie Sin says that he had a dream that LEGO released a $350 Ultimate Collector's Edition Gladiator model. That would be something wild if they ever did that. I don't think anyone would know what it is. I think pretty much only the people that play Armada at this point really know what a gladiator is. We're just talking about Architens and how they're hard to get. There's a lot of text. It's hard to read everything. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. Your entire fleet. Let's see. What would I need to bring for a tournament? So thinking about going to Apollyon, it says his wife is encouraging me to sign up for the tournament at Gen Con, but I've never competed in a tournament before. What are some things to expect if I sign up? What I need to bring? I don't mean what list, blah, 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 but like things. So Ken recommends water and comfortable shoes, and I 100% second that. So it's a long day. It depends on how many rounds it ends up being. Usually tournaments are 4 rounds the first day, maybe 5. 5 days are murder. And then they usually have a split off the top to do a tournament like day 2. So be prepared to be mentally exhausted. And it's almost worth practicing. Like, can I play like 4 games in a row? You can. It's just by that 4th game, you're on like hardcore autopilot. So know your lists, know your upgrades. If it's your first time, maybe go a little bit light on upgrades. Just like know what you need to trigger and when to trigger them. fighter heavy fleets are exhausting to play because it really matters exactly where you position every single fighter. So it's mentally exhausting. So get a good night's sleep, eat well, drink water. I always make sure that there's a chair around that I can sit on. And if I'm not actively, it's not actively my term, or we're not measuring something, I'm sitting. And that's just to reduce the wear on my feet and just from standing all day, because most of the tournaments start at like 9 o'clock and they'll finish at like 7. So you're playing the entire day, 4 to 5 rounds. And it's just exhausting. So I always make sure that I have a chair around. So I stand, I do my turn, and then I sit down. And I just sit there. I let my opponent play out his turn. I watch what happens. If there's a close measurement, then I get up and we can talk about it. But then I sit back down. And not a lot of people do that. Like, people just try to stand, but each round is like 2.5 hours. Like, that's a long time to stand. You can do it, but why do that to yourself? So I would definitely bring comfortable shoes. Some people bring those floor mats down that they can drop down, so then you're more comfortable standing. It's like the workstation floor mats. I actually have one that I use when Ken and I record, and I just stand on it. Or we have like foam, those puzzle piece pads, like for baby areas and like gyms that we have down, so then our feet don't hurt as much. Because like Ken and I, we usually record anywhere between like 2 to 4 games when we record. Like Madness was nuts. I think one day we did like 6 rounds of it, or 6 games of it. So just be mentally prepared for it. I know everything I just said sounds really negative. It's a lot of fun, but those are the things that you need to be like, hey, just so you know, bring water. I always bring granola bars of some kind, so in case of like my game runs long or I'm not going to be able to get to lunch, I can just jam the granola bars, power bars down. I usually keep like a bottle of water and or Gatorade, depending on the venue. They might not let you bring that in, but usually everyone allows water. So I might have like 1 or 2 water bottles, and I'll just down them in between rounds. But definitely bring something to stay hydrated, something to eat, to snack on because it's a long day, and nice shoes, or maybe a pad to stand on. And if there's chairs around, make sure that a chair follows you around so you can sit down. Those are my biggest suggestions for it, which I think is pretty much what everyone else has been saying. Okay. So let's jump into it. So let's talk about what this battle really was. This battle was the first time that Ken and I used the new cards that were released with Rapid Reinforcements 1. If you don't know about this, it's a print and play expansion pack that AMG released like 2-3 weeks ago now. And it allows for ships that used to be in one faction to be used in another faction. It also released new fighter options for 3 out of the 4 factions. So each faction got a new ship based off of an old ship. And then 3 out of the factions got new aces. So that's a lot of content. That's pretty awesome. So what happens is the Venator 2 becomes a ship that the Empire can use. The Providence is a ship then that the Rebels can use. The Victory is a ship that the Republic can use. And the Gazanti is a ship that the CIS can use. There's a new Vader TIE Defender squadron. There is a new Delta 7 Athersprite Anakin squadron. And there's a new X-Wing Hera squadron. So those are the things that were released. And Ken and I were really, really excited to get these out there. And as you know, like, we've already pretty much completed season 4. So like right now we're releasing Madness. Season 4 is already pretty much done. So we wanted to be able to get this stuff out before, like, you know, December, because we record way in advance. So we decided to record some episodes and just slide them in. So this is the first one that we released. We recorded it like as soon as we could right after it was released. Ken was out of town on vacation, so he wasn't around right when it released. And so I built both these lists. And both these lists I wanted to get some ideas out of how I think the fleets would be cool. Like, neither of the lists are optimized, so when you look at it, you're like, well, that's not really optimized. It's not. It's kind of intentional. It was just to get some fun ideas out on the board to see the new upgrades. Like, if you look at my list, I talk about it at the end of the discussion. Like, this isn't how I would fly it if I would actually fly it. I would bring it with 2 flotillas decked out with more officers to support my ships, not the X-Wings that I brought so Ken can kill them with Darth Vader. Because, like, Hera doesn't fit this fleet at all. And, like, Ken's fleet, like, it would be better with more fighters, but I wanted a variety of things just to show off, like, yep, this is the cool part of these fleets. So let's start off with my fleet. So it is a Raddus 2-ship fleet with just what it is. So it is a Starhawk Battleship Mark I. It is Admiral Raddus. It has whale explosives. It has expert shield techs. It has local fire controls. It has flat guns. It has point defense ion cannons. It has DBY-827 heavy turbo lasers, and it has Unity. It has all the stuff to make it a super tank, except for Agate. But, like, you don't necessarily need Agate when you only have this. But the whole point of this is you have to shoot at it because it's my only ship. It's the only way you're going to win is be able to really shoot this ship. And it's super, super tanky. Unity gives it an additional redirect, so Expert Shield Text becomes really good because now I have 2 redirects that I can trigger it off of. Cool. Local Fire Control means I can get rid of that pesky Contain and replace it with a Salvo. Cool. And then Flat Guns means that I'm throwing 2 reds at long range, and at medium and short range it's 2 reds and a black. Awesome. And then DBY says that I can reroll, or I can just set one of those dice to a hit. So if the black dice comes up as a double, then it's a double. If not, I can set it to a double. So that's guaranteed 2 damage every single time I attack. The red dice are red dice, so they'll do whatever they want, and I can set those to a crit as well. So you have options for your salvo, which you're going to probably use because it's the only thing someone can attack. Like, you have to kill it to win the game. And it's also because Raddus can only deploy off the ship that he's on, since, 1.5 and rule changes and things like that. Like, you have to kill it, otherwise he's dropping his other ship on you. And his other ship's a Provident, which is also kind of a tank, so I have, like, 2 tank fortresses in this list, and you have to kill both of them. And if I wanted to, I could just sit there and not allow you to attack the other one until the Starhawk's almost dead, and then I drop the Providence on top of you. And the Salvo and the Starhawk itself, between the salvo and its normal attacks, can whittle down almost everything because it's super powerful. It's slow, it's not going to move anywhere fast, but I don't care because I can just drop at distance 2 away from me the other ship, and then you're double arc, triple arc, quadruple arced, and things like that. So it's a super tank ship. That's kind of my plan. Now let's look at the Providence. The Providence is a really, really weird ship for the Republic. I'm going to move myself up here. Like that, because, like, look at this crazy upgrade bar. Like, no upgrade bar in the entire game is like this. It has 2 officers, which is rare. There's only 2 ships that have more officers than 1, and 1 that can take an upgrade to get that. So that's the Pelta can take an upgrade to get an extra officer. And the 2 ships that can take it is the Super Star Destroyer and the one that we just looked at, which is the Starhawk. So it's in rare company. It's one of the only ships that has double, I think that is weapons team, which is super, super rare. It has also double offensive retro slot, which is super, super rare. And it has 2 support team, which I think it's the only ship that has that. So it has, like, double of the rarest of all of the upgrade cards. So you can do some really weird things with it. You can do, like, double boarding teams, which I thought about doing, and then I decided not to because I wanted to do this instead. But, like, you could do double boarding teams, and then, like, on your turn have a token from, like, a source and a dial, and you can trigger 2 boarding teams on someone at the same time, which would be awesome because the Rebels actually have a lot of good boarding teams, but they've never had a good way to deliver them. This is the way to deliver them. So the way I have it equipped is I have Ahsoka Tano. So before I get to her, let's talk about Rey Ramus Antilles. Ramus Antilles is when I reveal a dial, I can get a token matching it. Cool. So let's just pretend I drop in, I reveal an engineering token or engineering command. I get an engineering token. And if I really need to heal up, that's cool. That's maximum engineering that I can do that turn. Or Ahsoka says, hey, you can turn that token into whatever you want, whenever you want, and then you can trigger other things. So as we go through the upgrade cards, you can see where I get this idea. So we have local fire control, which replaces my evade with a salvo. And the reason why I'm doing that, and because the evade's actually pretty good on this ship because it's a large and you can reroll dice to avoid crits, but like this ship I'm planning on dropping literally on top of someone, so it's going to attract a lot of fire. And the other option is to attack the Starhawk. So between the Starhawk and this, you then have 4 salvos. And they're all decent salvos, and this is going to be up in your face, and it's one of the evil rainbows for the rear. So it's going to be putting out a lot of damage. So this fleet is very dangerous to shoot at. That's why I have local fire control. Also, if you look at it, after you deploy, you must replace one of your things. So technically, when you Radis drop in or you hyperspace in through the objectives, that is considered deploying. There were other cards like that get tokens, and tokens only go on cards when like Clone Nav Officer and the resupply cards. Their term for that blue bar on the side is during deployment, which is a phase of the game. So if you were to Radis drop one of those ships, then you wouldn't get any effect from them because it's the wrong timing window. But after you deploy is a different timing window, so it still works. Then has Ordnance Experts because this is actually a heavy black die ship. And who doesn't want to reroll their black dice into doubles? It is flat gun, so I can shoot longer ranges. Again, this is all about being tanky and shooting people when they shoot you. Hardened bulkheads, which is just funny because if I'm hyperspacing this out, if I drop it on a small ship, I can just ram right into you and not care and not move, and then I'm still staking where I'm at, and I'm a super tank. And you have to ram me with large ships to even do damage to me. Auxiliary shield team, so if you let me land in uncontested, I can Ramus Antilles and I can get all my shields on the sides. So then like it would be 5 in the front, 4 on the sides, and 2 in the rear. That's a lot of shields for coming out of hyperspace. And then his engine techs. If you look at its speed, it's pretty terrible. It doesn't really maneuver well, and it's only speed 2. So like I said, probably going to be engineering because it's going to be taking a lot of fire. With Ramus, I get an engineering token. Ahsoka says I can turn that engineering token into a navigate, and the navigate says when I spend it, I can use engine techs. So it becomes suddenly a speed 3 ship. And I still get to engineer. That's kind of my whole plan between these officers. It spends a lot of points doing it, but I don't need another ship then supplying me with tokens to do what I need to do. I can just repair every turn, and I can engine tech. And I can make that choice when I need to make that choice. So if I don't need to try to move pseudo speed 3, I don't have to. And instead I can just dedicate all my points to repairing up. That's kind of my thought process on the ship. So I have like a super tank in the Starhawk that's going to fly forward slowly. And then you can attack that and it's going to salvo you back and it's going to try to punch you in the face. And then out of nowhere, this thing's going to appear. And guess what? It's going to move slowly right into you and be a super tank. And it's going to salvo you back too. So like I have a ton of damage in these 2 ships. And they're all point fortresses. The last part of this fleet is the new Hera card. And Hera triggers off of things with escort, so I decided to bring 3 X-Wings with her just so that I had points and stuff with that. So Hera is when you are activated, friendly squadrons at distance 1 have escort gain Adept 1 until the end of the round. Adept is when you attack with the squadron, you can reroll up to the Adept number. So what's interesting about her is the way she's phrased is when you are activated, which is kind of like an awkward timing window, but that's when you choose her and activate her. So when you activate, like you go to activate a squadron, you start by sliding the slider, even if you haven't moved or haven't attacked yet, that's the start. When you do that, all of the ships with escort around her in distance 1, gain adept 1. What's interesting about adept 1 in any of the things that have a number in them is if you gain an additional adept whatever number, it increases that. So if you already had adept 1 and you gain adept 1, now you have adept 2. It's very clearly written like that in the rules for all of those things. So like if you have counter 1 and you gain counter 1, you now have counter 2. Things like escort and swarm and bomber, like you see on these cards, don't have numbers. So you can't gain like an additional bomber. You can't gain an additional swarm. That doesn't work. It only works with the numbered things. So saying that, if you activate her with an activation and give all the X-Wings around her adept 1, and then you Adon Talon her back to unactivated, and then you immediately activate her again to the next ship or activation or during the fighter phase, that means she hands out again her adept 1. So that means you could have X-Wings and other escort ships that are powered up to adept 2 because of the way the cards were written. They're looking into it is what I've heard, if that's actually the way they wanted it to interact, but that's currently the way it interacts. And that makes it pretty powerful. I didn't go that route. Like, honestly, like if you really wanted to go all in Hera, Hera would be amazing with a Biggs ball. That's not really what I was going for. I included Hera here, so I had Hera included so we could show her off. But ideally, Hera doesn't really fit in with the rest of this build. But she's fun to use. And I used her and I flew across and I did way more damage with her than I thought I should. So with all of that, like a Rebel list now with Hera possibly triggering twice and Torn Far Around means that an X-Wing can reroll 3 of its dice in an anti-squadron. And it could reroll its bomber attack. And then you could have bomber command center too. So you get like 2 chances to reroll with a red dice. Really, really powerful. I think she's going to see X-Wings come back. I mean, like Biggs balls were already a thing and they were already good, but I think we're going to see them increase again. So I'm going to pause right now and we can talk about, give me a second. What I would bring instead. Let me pull this up. So I actually made a list. If I were to bring not the fighters, what would I bring instead? So what I would do is I would bring 2 GR75s. One of them would be Hondo and Comsnet, and the other would be Ahsoka and Comsnet. And you're like, Ahsoka's already on a ship. What would you put on the ship instead? And instead I would put Lando on the Providence because it's just funny to drop in a Providence and it can re-roll all of your attack dice to reduce damage. What I would change then about the Starhawk is I had just extra like 10 points, so I put Magnite Crystal Tractor Beam on it because I think it would be funny, especially with Radis. Like, first player, my turn is I can drop you to a speed that I want you to trap you, and then I drop a Providence on you, and then you can't escape. And now you're in this death little trap of a Starhawk and a Providence that are both going in on you. I think that would be funny. I think that's what I would choose instead. So no fighters, 2 more transports, 2 more activations, allows my Starhawk to get to where it wants to. You can go ahead and go after those GR75s that are going to be playing at the back of the board if you want to, but to get to them, you have to go through my Starhawk and then a Providence that's chasing you. That's ideally how I would play it if I were to make this list again. So now let's jump over to the other list, which is the Imperial list that Ken flew. Again, I made this list as well, and I just wanted to get the new things out there. So it has Vader in it, it has a Venator, and it has like a standard, like what people have talked about. Wouldn't this be cool to run on the Venator list? So we start off with the flagship, which is a Raider 1. It has Admiral Screed, it has Iden Versio, it has Flechette torpedoes, and it has Corvus. And this whole setup is really just anti-fighter if you want to fly it in, or anti getting Onagerd's surprise attack. It's kind of going to be like kind of a standard moving forward for Imperial. Like you kind of have to bring this. What's fun about it is if you don't roll a double with the Raider against fighters, Screed allows you to do it once, and you can flechette exactly which squadron you need to, because he's once per activation. And it's while a friendly ship's attacking, it does not designate what type of target it attacks. So that's why I put flechette torpedoes on it, because I think it would just be funny to shut down a specific target with it, because you don't really see it very often, but it's like really good for flak boats. And then Iden just keeps it alive, so you can't really come after it with fighters. Then you have the Venator, and it's a Venator too. It's in the Imperial faction. It's now this and the Onagers, the only ships that have native salvo for the Empire. And I started off with saying, let's use local fire control to give it an additional salvo. So knock out the contain, give it a salvo. Cool. What's fun about that with Screed is once per activation. I'm going to go back and show you Screed. So Screed is once per activation while a friendly ship is attacking. It may spend 1 dice to change a die to a face with a crit, which means that you can do that during salvo once per activation, which includes the other player's activation. It's not once per round. So on pretty much each salvo, you can change 1 dice to a side with a hit, and you have the evil rainbow out the back. So if the red or the blue come up as something you don't want, you can just switch that black dice into a double. Or if like the blue's an accuracy you have options then to change things in that. So that was kind of my idea with that. It has electronic counter, in your face type of ship, because 2 reds, 2 blues, 2 blacks means you pretty much need to be at black range, close range, to do any damage. So then expanded launchers just doubles down on that. So then your initial, like your dice pool at out your front is 2 reds, 2 blues, and 4 blacks. And with Screed, that's going to be a lot of damage. Then you have external racks on top of that, so you can just throw in extra blacks. So like that front attack on 1 attack is going to be 6 black dice without concentrating fire, which is amazing. And then XI7s on this, so then you can't redirect it. So you could like really, really punch hard with 6 black dice, and then they can't redirect it, and then you just hope that your like blue and reds come out with an accuracy, so you can block a brace, which is what we see in our game. And Ken did like 9+ damage with accuracies on all of my stuff, and you just boom punch her really, really hard. That's kind of how I like to play the ship. I haven't played the ship myself, but in design process and seeing Ken fly it, I think that would be a lot of fun. That's why I built it like that. That's pretty cool. You could switch out expanded launchers, make it cheaper, and instead add like a critical effect, which is fine too, like totally fine. But what makes me hesitant on that is that you only get black dice out your front. So having a critical effect card on the Venator becomes like risky because you don't have any black dice out your side. So if you're going to double down by having to be in your front to be in black range, you might as well just double down on expanded launchers and get more black dice on each of those attacks. That's kind of my thought process. Like even though you have double ordnance, like you only have like out your rear, like you don't really want to be trying to trigger ordnance upgrades out your rear, and you only have your front, and you can't really do it on salvos because you can only do standard crits. So you're kind of like in a tough spot with how you're going to be able to do it. That's why I equipped it this way. Next, we have the bare bones Gladiator 1 Ordnance Experts, Assault Proton Torpedoes, and Demolisher. This is like pretty standard, and you have Screed, so you should be able to get that Assault Proton Torpedo off against anything, even things with evades, you should be able to get it off against. So it's super good. That's it. And then you have a Gazanti with expanded hangar bay. And the reason why I have expanded hangar bay is because the Gazanti's Squadron 2. Expanded brings it up to Squadron 3. And none of the other ships in this fleet really want to be doing squadrons. But we have some squadrons to push around because, I had to bring Vader and things like that. So this allows you to pretty much push all your squadrons around except for your Rogue. But the Rogue will just be able to do its own thing during the end of the term anyway, so you don't really need to worry about it. So, fighters, new Darth Vader. And I didn't necessarily like him. He died really, really fast. He died faster than either Ken and I thought. And in the game, like, I threw Hera into X-Wings at it, and I'm like, okay, well, the whole idea of me bringing Hera and X-Wings was just to have something for the fighters to fight against so you could see how he worked. And under no circumstance was I planning on actually being able to kill Vader off with it. So that would really surprise me when 3 X-Wings, and I don't even know if I really used a reroll on any of them, even with gaining the Adept, just straight out murdered Vader in one activation. It was crazy. But Vader's special ability is while attacking a unique squadron, each of your crit icons adds 1 damage to the damage total. Meh. Especially against things like Escort. Like, you can't shoot through Escort. Like, you can hurt aces. Cool. And you have a red, 2 blacks, and a blue, which is okay. Like, you don't have a lot of crit options, and that red dice means that you're really only rolling with 3 dice, but then the crits come back and help you a little bit, but that's not really super good. It has Adept too, so you can re-roll 2 dice, which is good, so you could hunt for crits. It is Bomber and it is Rogue, which Rogue speed 5 is pretty crazy. Its anti-ship is 2 red dice, but Bomber helps you out there, and then Adept, so you basically roll your 2 blanks, and you re-roll it, and you get 1 damage. As you can tell, I'm not really super sold on him. He has 1 brace, and then he has stuck on, so it appears that he has 2 defense tokens and evade. And the evade doesn't really do much against squadrons or getting flacked. So you pretty much have a 1 brace. Vader would be way better if he had 2 braces, or if he had like that mythical card that they revealed originally, which had him have a scatter. He would be really good with that. But right now he's just like mediocrely okay is kind of my opinion. Like, I'm probably going to need to play with him more to get more of an opinion, but like, he dies super fast. Like, super fast, and his damage output isn't necessarily high enough unless he's just targeting aces. So he's okay. He costs 25 points, so he's really expensive, but like 1 defense token, and he died like instantly. So I don't want to say he's bad, but I don't know if he's good, especially when you look at the next card, which is Merrick Steele, who's just like better. Because he doesn't have Rogue and he doesn't get rerolls, but he rarely needs rerolls because he's rolling 2 blues, 2 blacks, and then he can just take one of the blacks and set him to a hit. So that's auto damage. So auto damage, I think, is better than Adept. And then he has 2 blue bomber, which 2 blue bomber, I think, is better than double red. And again, he can just set one of them to a crit. So like, most of the time you're going to roll a hit and or an accuracy, and then the accuracy just sets to a crit. And he's cheaper. And he has 2 braces, so he actually survives. So I think Steel's still better and cheaper than Vader, which makes me feel bad because I really want Vader to be really good, and I was super excited about Vader, but like, he died super fast. So like, the Imperials need to bring a ton of escort to protect Vader, which kind of feels weird. Like, why do you need people to protect Vader? Like, Vader should just go out there and kill everything all by himself. And he needs really protection, otherwise you just snipe him out and he's gone. So I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe we just need more playthroughs, so you guys can let me know what you guys think of them. But then you have Jendon, so you can, I was going to say use Vader twice, but you might as well just use Merrick Steele because he's better twice. And then you have Tell, who's your escort squadron, and Rogue. So like I said, like, the Gazanti can activate Vader, Steele, and Jendon, and then Tell just does his own thing during the squadron phase. So like, that's a pretty tight group right there. So I'm going to take a break from chatting about the fleets and look at your guys' comments, and then we're going to jump back. We're going to look at the objectives, and we're going to then also look at how the game played out. So let's do that. I'm going to have to scroll up and see where we left off. Yes, the Empire of War mods do use gladiators, but like, as far as like the majority of Star Wars fans, like if you look at Star Wars is such a huge IP and there's so many people that are on like that casual level, most people don't know what Empire at War is, let alone what the Star Wars mods is. Like I've been following Empire at War since it came out. I bought it the day that it came out, so I love the game. I also follow pretty closely Corey Luzis, who's one of the main mod guys for it. He's the one that does the Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic, which are both great mods. You guys should check them out. They really get the Star Wars feel. They just are releasing their latest patch for the Thrawn's Revenge, and all the factions are so good in that, and they're all unique now for the Imperial faction. So you have the Empire, which is just like your classic like Imperial, whoever is in the storyline and controlling the core worlds. You have Zinj and his Super Star Destroyer, and he's kind of piratey. You have the Pentastar alignment, who formed at the top of the galaxy, and they were actually the most stable, oddly enough, and they were the ones that became the Empire later on in the EU / formed the ceasefire with the Republic at the New Republic afterwards. Then you have who are the Iridium Authority, who's an Imperial faction too, and then who's the red faction? I don't know, but they have like tons of Imperial splinter factions that you can play, and they're all like unique units and have different play styles, which is awesome. You have the New Republic in there, obviously. So you have the New Republic. They just released the Hapes, and so you can play the Hapens, and then they also have like CSA, which is the Sector Fleet Authority. So like they have tons of factions, and they're all played differently, and it's Empire at War, and they do have gladiators in a couple of the Imperial factions, which is pretty cool. But like that's super obscure. Like it's already an obscure ship, and then even if it's an Empire at War, most people aren't going to know what it is, because most people don't know what almost a 20-year game is at this point. You're welcome. But like for real, like bring water in a power bars. Like my box, like I bring like a container with all my ships. Like there's a whole section to it. Like now, because it's the world we live in, it's like hand sanitizer, water, and power bars to make it through the day. Also, I bring a Kleenex box because sometimes like just the air is so dry, your nose starts running. You don't want to be like wiping on yourself. So bring a box of Kleenex. That's just for me. Quick link to the Sierra cards. I think Ken's gonna post that. This was a fun extra, guys. Didn't expect you to have a video out on a Tuesday. I know we kind of surprised everyone about it. We didn't even announce it. We just dropped it. Are you gonna do a Clone Wars side of Rapid Reinforcements? I don't know. You just never know. You could just be surprised at any point of any day of any week of when we decide to release things. So stay tuned. It could happen. It could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen Wednesday. It could happen Thursday. Probably not on Friday, because I already told you what's coming out on Friday. But something like that could happen. Nice medal though. Ken's responding. So Skull's running the Shiv and boarding engineers. Yeah, see, like eventually, like the problem is like it takes so long to edit and record. Like eventually, I think Ken called dibs on doing a boarding team. So if he doesn't do that, then I'll do a boarding team Providence. So that will be coming out eventually. Oh yeah, literally Ken just says that after I said that. Next door tournament, folks won't be expecting me to play Rebels. Yeah, it's interesting with this is like, for the most part, certain people just play certain factions. And then this expansion makes it so then you're like, maybe I'll play a different faction. I still get a fun ship that I like in a different faction. Ken and I both play everything pretty consistently. If you were to rank, though, what we play, I am definitely Imperial first, CIS, GAR, then Rebel. And I think Ken would be then Rebel, Imperial, GAR, CIS. I could be mistaken. He could probably respond to that in the comments himself. But, like, why not try a different faction? You have the ships for it already. Oh no, it lost place. Yes, I will be painting my ships, Mark. I just literally haven't had time to do it. I actually went out, so I may have bought a bunch of stuff, so I'll be able to repaint everything that I would need for each faction, and not take away from any of my other factions. So we'll be repainting a Venator. I think I'm going to go with like my standard, like my very Imperial white fleets for the Venator. I have a new I bought some new panel liner, so I'm going to try that and just be an experiment on it. I got to figure out what color gray I want to paint the Providence so then it looks cool. I figured out my paint scheme for the victories. I have 4 new victories that I'm going to be painting up, so they'll be permanently slotted into the Republic army. I got 2 more Gazantes. I found a 3D print file for the Sea-Rock model, so I'm probably going to paint the Gazantes up in the meantime, but I got to like set up my printer space, get my printer running, print the models, let them cure, prime them, paint them, but I'm probably going to be switching out all my CIS Gazantes for Sea-Rock models, which I'm kind of excited for, but we'll get to there. And then I already have extras of all the fighters because I always have extra fighters, so those are in now the paint queue, but with work, having a baby, life in general, I haven't had time to do any painting since it came out. Also, before I forget, big shout out to Dan/Wild Space. He's been with our channel for a long time. He's also a member of our local Armada community. And I was talking on our Discord, or the Discord for the game store, and I was like, I can't find a Venator anywhere besides for like, $100+ because people are scalping them. And he's like, I have an extra one if you would like to buy it from me. So he sold me one, new in box. So I was super excited to have that. So now I have one to paint. So thank you very much. Vader and the Defender sounds great, but it looks like it needs some work. I have some ideas for Vader. Tell needs lock squadron balls before Vader comes in. I would agree with that, but like at the same time, like if you're not first player, that becomes kind of hard to do. Like other players would be able to maneuver around Tell, and all you have to do is jump to the other side of them, which is what Ken and I talked about. I'll talk about this in a minute, but Ken like spread out his fighter so it can a Providence drop on him, which is a decent idea. But Tell was just slightly too far away, and Tell needs to be like literally on top of Vader, but there's always a space that you can get into distance one of one squadron and not another, which makes it hard. Yeah, it would be cool to get a Rebel 1 title for the Providence. Also, I know Mel Miniatures makes a Rebel 1 model. I'm not necessarily sold on how it looks, so I'm going to wait for a little bit and see if anyone else comes out with a decent looking Rebel 1 model to replace the Providence. And that's another reason why I haven't like jumped super much on the painting of it yet, because the Rebel 1 actually has these weird like wings where the hangar bay should be, and that's like, I'm not saying that's the reason why it has less squadron value, but lore reasons, are always fun to think about. So we'll see if a cool model comes out like that. Fall of the Republic is my favorite mod, but Thrawn's will always make me happy. Yeah, Thrawn's Revenge is just a really good mod. I've been playing that. Like, I was looking at it because I recently updated it and I had to delete my old one. And it was like I had like version 2, and now they're way past that on versions because it's been out for so long, the mods. Do you think that the Starhawk on the high end of power for its cost? I think the Starhawk's under cost. Like when you look at how much it is versus like the Super Star Destroyer, it almost has all the slots. It's not as long, so you can't target it as easily. It turns. I just stop there. It turns, and it has super powerful guns, and it has upgrade cards, and it becomes 6 defense tokens with Agate for 20 points. So like Agate and a Starhawk's more expensive versions, like 170 points versus the cheapest naked Super Star Destroyer, which is 220. So 50 points difference. Like Starhawk's really good. And what makes the Starhawk really good is you can make it like porcupine, like it has really sharp needles if you attack it and spikes. So you don't want to attack it, and you can dump like half your fleet into it, and it just is half your fleet and probably won't die. That's what makes this Starhawk so good. Okay, so Ken did respond. And probably Imperial, Rebel, CIS, GAR. How often I play them. Having said that, I'm trying to get better at GAR. So did I have you pretty much right? I think maybe the GAR and CIS flipped. But yeah. I've just paid 74 on my Venator. 75 for the Venator is not bad, considering most of them are going for like $100+, which is ridiculous. Okay. Yeah, repaints are fun. I haven't repainted a ship in years though, so it's going to be a challenge. So I'm looking forward to having time to do that. So let's jump into the game before it gets too much later, because I'm already almost at like an hour and a half. So let's talk about objectives and then into the game itself. Okay, so here's the objective. So being a Radis fleet, I would like to go first. So I had to choose from Ken's objectives. And there's an advanced gunnery here, because remember how I brought expanded launchers with XI7s? I don't know if there's really anything that can survive an advanced gunnery shot into the same arc twice from expanded launchers like that with XI7s. So you don't choose that. So the Venator then chooses that. And the Venator just flies as fast as it can right into your face. And then it shoots you into the same arc with 2 reds, 2 blues, 4 blacks twice with XI7, so you can't redirect it anywhere. And then you also have X-Rax to add in there. And then if one of the rolls is kind of pretty bad, then you just use Screed to make it into a double. So, like, no thank you. That's why that card's there. Contested outpost, because you can just sit on the outpost and your fighters and your rest of your things can skirmish. And then Intel Sweep, you have a Speed 4 redeployable Raider, which is really good to try to get Intel Sweep and 75 points. So, like, that's pretty much it. And then, like, the Gladiator and the Venator just run interference so you get the tokens. So I don't really want to do that. And so, like, Intel Sweep's out because I have one ship, Starhawk, and then the Providence, which I can't really nominate because it's in hyperspace. So that doesn't sound like fun. Advanced Gunnery sounds like zero fun to give to that super powerful Venator. And then Contested Outpost is it. And, like, I would choose Contested Outpost anyway because I'm a Radis drop and I would like to know exactly where your big ship is when I drop on you. So that's why I chose a Contested Outpost. I think the objectives for my my Starhawk list, like, I just realized that I should probably start showing you guys this. Is Surprise Attack, Contested Outpost, and Solar Corona, and that's really so I can control where the other player should be, or I know where they are because I'm a Speed 2 ship and I don't move fast, and then I'm able to directly drop the Providence on top of them. So that's my goal with that. So let's look at the game deployment. Contested Outpost right here, so I know that Ken has to be in this general vicinity. And then I put my Starhawk off to the side so it's difficult to get a flank around me. And then I can just fly straight in as fast as I can and try to bully him off the station. Ken's deployment is how I would put it. The Gladiators over here is to try to flank. Flagship off to the side. Gazanti should be over here so it can command the squadrons, but putting it there puts it at risk of getting evaporated by the Starhawk. So it's that. But, like, the Gazanti is the one that needs to be pushing the squadrons. And the Venator just wants to sit on the station. Setup's all fine for both of us. Sorry about that. Okay, so turn 1, I slowly move forward. Ken slowly moves forward. We just jockey our fighters. And Ken really doesn't want my Providence to be coming down right here. So I could drop it on the asteroid and then not really be able to move forward. Didn't want to do that. So Ken tried to zone out this area with his fighters. But what that did do mean is that this is tell And that's Vader over there, and then I could just jump right over and attack Vader. But even if like Tell moved here, he would I could still jump over him, and Tell could only really engage my first X-Wing, which I'm fine leaving one X-Wing engaged with him to be able to do exactly what I did. So there's really no way that Ken could have stopped me from doing what I did if he didn't move his squadrons forward. And if he didn't move his squadron forwards, then I would just be dropping the Providence over on the side, and the Starhawk and the Providence would have made a wall and just move straight ahead. So like Ken was kind of in a tough spot for that. But that's what's hard against Radis drops is you don't know where the Radis drop's going to come out, and it's always going to be in a bad spot for the player being dropped on, not the player dropping it. So it is what it is. And then you can see our fighter ball ended up fighting here. I kept pushing forward with the Starhawk because at this point, like, let's be honest, this poor little gladiator wasn't long for the world against my salvo that was like 4 damage every attack and then my attack on top of it. And I needed to push forward to try to get onto the station as soon as possible. So pushing here allows me then to drop my Providence behind Ken, which is never a fun thought for a player. Like, I'm going to drop an entire ship that's super powerful right behind you. And that's kind of what I did. So I was able to drop it in, be single arc, so I wasn't eating that expanded launcher stupid shot into the face of the Providence, because that would have wrecked me. Especially with XI7s, it's just... Ugh. And now I have Ken's main ship pinned in between 2 super heavy ships. So like he could try to run, but then I just hold the station, and then Providence can move speed 3 right after it. So yikes. He managed to just get his Raider behind me, which is not what I wanted, and escape my Starhawk. Like Starhawk's rear just all by itself isn't that good, and then he just doesn't attack me and I don't salvo him. Fighter ball's doing its thing. So after that, I killed the Venator and I killed the Gazanti. Raider comes over here and helps the fighters finish off, and then it can just drop speed and just land here. And I'm never going to be able to get the Starhawk over to it. And the Providence is pointing in the wrong direction. So I just sit on the the outpost collecting the rest of the points. So that's kind of how the game went down. Like, it was a short bloodbath of a game. We both were rolling tons of dice, which is always fun. It was a pretty fun game. I like playing Radis. I haven't played him in a while. He's just kind of easy mode because you just put a ship exactly where you want it. And like Providence is one of those ships, like it's like, this is why I made this list. So on the command stack, we were talking about like, what would you want to Radis drop? And I talked about a Providence, because Providences are kind of hard to get into the right position, because Providences most of the time, like I build them to be like salvo boats, and they're either off to the side because someone's going to completely avoid it, or it's just in the wrong position. Like, you know what would be the best ship to Radis drop in? A Providence, because it's a salvo boat. You drop it in and the opponent has to deal with it. Well, you can't do that with the CIS, but you can now with the Republic. Not the Republic, the Rebels. And the Providence is just a hard ship to deal with, and it's just blam right in your face or right into your side. Like, what do you have to deal with it, and it's going to salvo you, and then it's going to attack you, and it's tanky. So it's a hard ship to deal with, and it's a great ship to drop in. I think it's a better ship to drop in than like MC-75 at this point. Like MC-75s you can deck out better to kill, but the salvo build on the Providence and possibly engineering multiple like boarding troopers is like a really good thing to drop in on someone. It just can wreck their day. Like dropping this into the side of a Super Star Destroyer means that you can double arc it out the sides because it's long enough, and you can boarding troopers it, and you can shiv it, that's his name, right? And redo, like, you can do so many terrible things with this ship. It's great. I really like it. So that's kind of it for that game. So if you have any questions or thoughts or comments, just hit it up in the comments. I'm going to go take a look at it, and I'm probably going to try to wrap it up because we've already been going an hour and a half. I was just excited to talk about everything and talk with you guys. So Oz is in our chat, and he's agreeing with me with Mel's Rebel one. It's the comic one, not the modified one from the new card. It's a little different. I know, it just looks kind of funny. And Mel usually makes really good models. I've bought a couple of his things before. Squadron size, not ship size yet. So I've bought one of the shuttles, like Kylo Ren shuttle, because I don't know if you guys know this, but like I have 2 collections of Imperial fighters. I have one that's the standard Imperial colors that I use, and then I have one First Order. So I bought that to switch out the Jendon's shuttle. So then it was like that V-shaped black shuttle for Kylo Ren. So I bought that. That's a really nice model. And then I also bought the solo version of the Millennium Falcon that Lando flies. So I have that painted up for Lando. So that's really cool. And those are both really good models. I also bought the conversion kit. So for the ISD. So my ISD 1 is actually an ISD 1. And I dug out the turrets, and I have better turrets on it. I have the new command tower. I have the turrets on the front and the fins in the back. So that looks really cool. And then I have one of my ISD2s converted over to be an actual ISD2 with the proper turrets. So I dremelled out the turrets and drilled turrets into it and things like that. So that all looks cool. So I've bought Mel products before, but the Rebel one just looks a little bit funny to me. And so maybe there will be a new model, maybe it won't, but yeah, I hope he does a redesign too. Yeah, so the mat that we used is new. We got it from, let me pull it up, give me a second. This is one of the Imperial Ship Shop mats. There's links that are in our descriptions and things like that. You can check it out. It's the same company that made the not Coruscant urban map, which we really liked. We have data links on it if you want to go check it out. It's a really, really high quality material. It's heavy, so it doesn't move anywhere. It's got a stitched edge. It has a really good feel to it. It's a really, really high quality mat. So this is one of his from his recent Kickstarter. So you can find this on his store now. And he gave Ken and me this one. And there's another one, which is kind of like a actual shipyard, which is really, really cool, which you'll probably see soon too. We'll probably have a giant battle over it, maybe a season ender. But yeah, I really like it. My favorite color is blue, so the blue on this looks gorgeous. It's just a really good mat. So good eyes for catching that, but yeah, you should totally check it out. How do you win against a Starhawk? It's hard. You just have to kill it. So, most of the time, if you look... So this is what actually makes my list with Radis dropping this in so difficult, because most of the time it's hard enough to kill a Starhawk. If you focus fire on it, you can do it. If you look, Ken actually was about to get to the point that he was just going to rip me to shreds. Most of my shields were gone. My defense tokens were starting to be depleted. You just need to overpower it, which is hard to do. And things were getting into my hull. So that was what was really important for me to activate it to kill the Gazanti and to kill the Venator, because if I let another round of that go off into my Starhawk, I could have lost it. Agate makes it really powerful too, but most of the builds that run Starhawks are usually just 2 flotillas and fighters, so as soon as you kill the Starhawk, it's dead. You table the fleet. So basically you have to figure out a way to just attack it enough that you can table it, which usually means you have to double arc it. You're going to eat salvo shots, and you need a bumper car of squadrons to keep their squadrons off of you, because it's usually flown with a rogue. I think if you go back and you look at... It's one of our first episodes, so maybe it's somewhere in between episodes 10 and 15. I run a Starhawk with 2 Gazantis and all rogue squadrons. And that's actually one of the things that's doing really, really well right now in different metas. And I think at LVO it did really well, and Adepticon it did really, really well. That style of Salvo Starhawk. And the way you beat it is you just kill the Starhawk. You have enough to keep the fighters busy enough that your ships can move in and just out damage it. And you're not going to win by big margins against it, even if you table it. But you need to kill the Starhawk to table them, because the rest of the fleet's just flotillas and fighters. So that's how you beat it. This list makes it complicated because I drop another super, super tanky ship in. So then you have two super, super tanky ships, and I get to choose when I drop in that Providence. So I might just hold on to it, so then you don't have enough time to kill it. And I could just fly off. So, like, if you look at my objective, surprise attack means that you're going to be away. You're not going to have enough time to move to kill the Starhawk, and then I drop the Providence on you. Contested outpost means that I will sit there with a Starhawk on the outpost collecting token points. You probably won't have enough turns to drop on it, and then I drop the Providence and I fly off. And then Solar Corona means I can set up wherever I want to do the exact same thing. So it is a very difficult fleet to beat. If you're beating it, you're probably only getting a 6-5 against it. It's a point fortress. This is what Armada has become. Oz says that the Mark 1 Assault Frigate models are apparently really good. You should post some of that up on our Discord. I would like to see them. I might have seen them and then forgot, but yeah, definitely post them up while we're talking about it. And so are Rogue One hammerheads. Yeah, is that the hammerheads that have the little pieces off to the side, like the turrets? I've seen those. I've thought about buying them, and then I just didn't get around to it. But they look really, really good. Yes, so Ken does have a data link coming out shortly with the Imperial Star Shop. I always butcher the name, and I feel really bad because I really like all the mats, but Imperial Star Shop. I always want to throw ship in there, but there's no ship because it's stars. His mats are really, really nice, and you guys should check him out. But he has a data link coming out talking to him about the process of designing new ones, and I think all the new ones look really, really good. I really like the first one, but like this blue one, maybe my favorite. So I really, really like it. Oh, someone says hashtag Team John. Most people aren't Team John, but I really appreciate your support. Thanks, Mark. Most people are hashtag Team Ken. So you and me against the world. Yeah, no. I can't wait to keep using all this new stuff. It's different, and sometimes the game just needs something different to change it up a little bit. And I think all these ships in the different factions will change it up. The Gazantes for sure will change up the CIS. The Victories for sure will change up the GAR. Anakin is just a powerhouse in it, like, already. Y-Wing Anakin was really good, but Delta 7 Anakin is just like that anti-squadron ship that the GAR really, really needed. The Venator, I don't know how much that changed it up. Like I said, I'm hit or miss so far on Vader. I'm sure people have used it to wreck things, but like Vader just blew up too fast. And then Hera, I think, is going to be really awesome. I can't wait to use a big ball with her. And the Providence I like because I like Providences. So I like pretty much everything that's in this new expansion and release. So Ken and I are both really, really excited to get it out there. So I think I'm going to probably call it. Okay, so I'd like to thank real fast James again for his $5 gift to us. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your, I think, Super Chat's the name of it. Atomic says it's probably because people like underdogs. I would agree with that. Ken is the underdog at this point, and I'm fine with that. I've taken the role of the villain. I'm fine with that. It's like we're just friendly. There's rivalry, but it's just friendship rivalry, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ken's also excited for the Victory and Hera from the thing. Those are his two standouts, so I would agree with that. Those are both really good. Stay tuned this week. We have definitely for sure coming out on Friday. The next this is Madness. We're going to be entering the second round, so the quarterfinals. TF versus Ozzel. So stay tuned for that, and just stay tuned for the channel because you never know what's going to happen. So just saying. So I don't know if I'm going to do a backseat next week. We'll decide how it goes. Life stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you very much for all tuning in. And checking us out. Check out all of our links for our different social. If you haven't already, come join Discord. It's like pretty much active all the time with people talking about stuff. So come check that out. Oh, for comments, if you're watching this later, down below, I posted today in Discord. If you are part of Discord, also check that out. But it was like a thought process on commanders. So the thought process experiment is if you name the top 4 rebel commanders, so like top 4 most powerful / most used, however you would like to define it, rebel commanders in the game currently. Write those 4 down. And then take all the rebel commanders and make them all 20 points. So there's no point difference. They're all 20 points. They're all cheap. And then write out what you think are or would be the top 4 commanders for the rebels then. And the thought experiment is, would it change who those commanders are? Just curious what you guys come up with. So go to Discord, post it in the comments, something like that. So that's kind of like my question of the day. It's just a thought experiment. And then tune into Discord and I'll talk about what I actually think after people start responding, that type of thing. So until next time, thank you very much from Ken and myself for watching our shows. And till next time, this is the Backseat Admiral. I'm John, and you're watching Ion Radio.